'Tis the season for celebration, for giving, for kindness, and for joy. It's Christmas, and our hearts are no doubt filled with holiday revelry. At Christmas time, we celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ, and we adorn our homes with stars and baubles, we decorate trees, and invite Santa in. What relationship do these symbols and rituals have to the actual biblical event? Here to explain some common misconceptions about Christmas is a guest who has been on our show before and loves history in total, National Director of World Vision Lanka, Dr. Dhanan, Senathirajah. Now, if you look back at history and how the story of the birth of Christ unfolded, what are the three most common misconceptions about that time?
First of all, we have a romantic notion about that time being full of peace and prosperity. Those were dark times, and the Jews had to live under the yoke of the Romans, and there was a lot of poverty, high taxation, and they had very little freedom other than for perhaps religious freedom. They didn't have very much else. And it was also a time when people really struggled to make ends meet. And those perhaps are the misconceptions, because we generally tend to think of these periods as full of light and full of prosperity.
So the star is held up as a symbol of Christmas, but what is the role the star actually played in leading the wise men to the stable?
First of all, the wise men didn't come to the manger or the stable where the Lord was kept in a manger. They came much later, and the Bible clearly says, if you look at the Greek word, they came to see a child that was already talking or already weaned. In addition to that, they came to the house. In the book of Matthew chapter 2, we see that they came to the house where the family was staying, no longer at the stables where he was born. So the star, I believe, was an angel or a supernatural star which led them to Jerusalem, and then it led them to Bethlehem, and it stopped there. So obviously it's not a comet, because a comet will not stop. It travels at a very high speed. And in addition to that, it could not have been some kind of alignment of planets coming together, because that also will keep moving. Where this star led them to Bethlehem, and it stopped there.
So the three kings, were they kings or were they wise men?
They were wise men. The term magi basically means wise men. Most likely they were astronomers, not astrologers. They studied the stars, and most likely they came from Babylon, and they might have had Jewish roots, because they looked at prophecies both from the book of Numbers and Micah. Both of them speak about the star of Bethlehem, or the star from God. So most likely these were people who studied the stars, and they linked it up with the prophecy that was there in the Old Testament.
What about the timelines? Now, you mentioned about the wise men coming and visiting a child who was weaned and talking at that time. But everything sort of seems to happen in the story as if it all happened together.
That's because of the nativity dramas or nativity plays that we generally have. We try to accommodate all these events into one scene. The shepherds did come to the place where the Lord was kept, or was born and kept. But the wise men, as I said a short while ago, came to the house where they were staying. So most likely after the Lord was born, they would have moved him, or the family, the Holy Family would have moved into a house where they were staying, most likely within a year or two. So by the age of 2, some children start talking. So that's why Herod the Great wanted all the male children born within the previous or the last 2 years to be murdered.
Did everything happen in December?
Most unlikely. The fact that the shepherds were out in the field denotes that it is either spring or autumn. So most likely it would have been the end of September, because if you look at that time period, during that time the Jews also celebrated the Feast of the Tabernacles. And here again, John in chapter 1 talks to us about the Word becoming flesh and tabernacled amongst his people. So most likely his birth would have taken place in late September. But the December date came on many years later in 335 AD under Constantine the emperor. When they were looking for a date to celebrate the birth of the Lord, they fixed it on that date because it had some connection to a pagan sun worship festival.
How has Santa Claus become part of the Christmas tale?
So the legend of Saint Nicholas started again very later, I mean centuries later rather, and he was born in what is present day Turkey, and he developed his ministry in a place called Myra, where he, though he was from a very wealthy family, he tried to help the poor people, and he did two things. One was to leave gold coins or put them, shove them under the doors of the people, the poor people, so they had a way to, or an opportunity to start all over again. In addition to that, he also hung gifts on evergreen trees in winter so that passers-by could take that, like fruits and gold coins and things like that, so that they could benefit from that. And that legend grew, and today we have Saint Nick or Santa Claus helping us out by distributing gifts.
The entire world celebrates Christmas. It's probably the most celebrated festival or religious holiday anywhere in the world. Why is that? Why does it bring everyone together?
Firstly, the attraction of Christ himself and his message. Here is God incarnate, but being born in humble circumstances, willing to identify himself with the poor and to be one of us. And also the kind of life that he lived, a perfect life without sin, and then he gave his life for the sin of this world. In addition to that, Christmas falling on December 25th is also helpful because it's at the end of the year. It gives a chance for people, after having worked so hard, to take some time off and to celebrate. And also because of the spread of the Western culture, Christmas has become part of every nation's year-end celebrations.
The Christmas tree, why is it so symbolic of Christmas?
Decorating an evergreen tree has been there throughout history. We can go back in time. You see, the Babylonians did that, the Egyptians did that, then the Nordic people did it, and the Vikings, for example, they decorated the tree because it symbolized, because it was an evergreen tree, it symbolized eternal life. It also symbolized that there is life after a terrible winter period, that life can go on. So the practice started in the 16th century Germany, was when the Christians first actually started decorating a tree. And it was brought into United Kingdom by Prince Albert, the husband of Queen Victoria, in 1848, and then the practice spread on from there to all the colonies and then virtually to the whole world.
When you bring all these things together, there seems to be a symbolism of Christmas that's brought in. But in reality, has the world really lost the concept of what Christmas is?
To a very great extent, the answer would be yes, because whatever the faith system or religion, most of it has been now commercialized and it's all about making money. So sometimes in the midst of all this glitter and glamour, we tend to forget the fact that the creator of the world became incarnate or became one of us in very, very humble circumstances. He wasn't born in a palace. He was born in a dirty place where animals were kept, and in a humble manner that he was born. So I think it's important for us to go back in the midst of all the celebrations. I don't say that the celebrations are bad, but in the midst of all the celebrations, to go back to the root and see why he came into this world. And not only in believing in him, but also living a life that will bring honor to the babe in Bethlehem, so that we can help the poor, those who are marginalized and those who are struggling, to help bring peace between human beings, because we are a race that is always at war with one another.
Thank you, Dhanan. A blessed Christmas once again, and let's hope that people do remember what Christmas is all about in future.
Thank you, sir. We wish you the same.
Don't forget, Kaleidoscope is on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Do remember to subscribe, like, and follow us for more.